time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set!
Just call me Swanny.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 the Midlands, heard around the world on the iHeart Radio application. Well, the college basketball season is done. It's over. And I have to tell you, I thought my projection was pretty spot on. I didn't think North Carolina would have enough in the tank to beat Kansas. I thought Kansas would end up winning. I would say my biggest surprise from last night's 72-69 victory by Kansas was the fact that North Carolina, who came out slow, all of a sudden went blistering. I mean, just on this incredible tear, scoring 16 unanswered points. They went from being knotted up at 22 apiece to North Carolina leading 38-22. But Kansas in the second half, after trailing by 15 points, with one of the great comebacks of all time, Kansas turns it on, and they actually end up taking the lead in the game with about 10, just under 11 minutes left in the matchup, and would not look back. A 3-point Jayhawk victory, and the Kansas comeback is complete. 803-450-0086, text line and phone line. If you want to be a part of the program, we'd love to hear from you here on the show today. Give credit to Bill Self and that ball club because they had every reason in that game to maybe fold up shop, but they didn't. They were steady even after they fell behind, and they just kept coming. And once North Carolina sort of lost the momentum, they didn't look as poised as we had seen, yet they had some opportunities late, but just not enough to get it done. And Kansas, with a 47-point second half, winning the national title 72-69. So with that, I want to go back to something I said yesterday. You know, I started talking about Coach K and whether or not I could leave and ride off into the sunset with a loss to North Carolina. And yesterday I said I don't think I could do that. Like, if I was Coach K, I don't think I could do that. But you know what I realized? Last night after the game ended, and it was Kansas who won. By the way, I called it the Roy Williams Open the other day, sort of jokingly, because those are the two schools he coached at. But what's really wild about it is that Bill Self is the coach who followed Roy Williams at Kansas. And then Hubert Davis is the coach who followed Roy Williams at North Carolina. Like, these are the two guys who followed Roy Williams. That's unique. All that being said, thinking back on it, if I were Coach K, knowing that now North Carolina didn't win the national title, I think I could hang it up. And here's why. So, Duke fans, hear me out for a minute. By the way, coming up in hour 2, Mike Yuva joins us. We'll talk about the Lady Gamecocks winning the national title and a whole lot more. if I were a Duke fan at this point, I would simply look at it as this. If a North Carolina fan say, ha, we knocked you out of the NCAA tournament, and Coach K, we ended Coach K's career, I can look at them and go, dude, you had a 15-point lead in the national championship game and blew it. Like, you had a 15-point advantage. And quite frankly, I would say to the North Carolina fan, it ended up being a 16-point lead, which is the greatest comeback in the history of the championship game, surpassing Loyola Chicago's 15-point rally against Cincinnati in 1963, which, oh, by the way, CBS just ran a special on the other day. So I think as a Duke fan, I am not. Well, as a Duke fan, the way I see it is, no. I think, well, I guess Duke fans would talk like that, right? As a Duke fan, here's how I see it. No, but I think as a Duke fan, I could be okay with it now. I think as Coach K, I could be okay with it. Like, had North Carolina gone on and won the title, and this was probably an addendum I should have put on it, on the conversation yesterday, but if North Carolina went on and won the title, then yes, I would have a very difficult time going about my days the rest of my life knowing not only did they take Coach K out, not only did they beat us at home in his final home game, but they won the national title. But the fact that they blew a 16-point lead, a record in the championship game, I can deal with that. Because anytime they bring it up, you go, dude, you blew a 16-point lead. You had a 15-point lead at the half. What are you talking about? Not listening to you. You keep talking all you want, but Kansas was the champ. 34-6, the Jayhawks, the 1 seed. They win it. Bill Self gets his second national title. The Jayhawks now have 4. And I think I really believe because North Carolina did not end up winning the title, if you are a Duke fan or Coach K, you can walk away. You can walk away. I've completely flip-flopped on that, but I didn't think of the alternate ending. I don't remember bringing that up yesterday. I don't remember saying, well, but what if North Carolina loses? Like, I just, was kind of thinking of it in the moment and not looking at the long haul. Speaking of the long haul, off seasons in Clemson basketball tend to be a bit of a long haul. And so news came out a couple of weeks ago, back on March 22nd, that Nick Honor was going to enter the transfer portal. Yeah, we talked about it, but Honor was undersized. Honor's probably looking at the opportunities maybe down the road being limited because you'd seen Chase Hunter come on. We talked about the fact that you would have, the potential now that you got Hunter Tyson coming back. You could have PJ Hall in the middle with Hunter Tyson. Maybe you mix in a transfer. Then you have Chase Hunter and Alamir Dawes. And look, you got a pretty good starting 5. Well, scratch Alamir Dawes off of your list, as earlier today, before we went on the air, junior guard Alamir Dawes put his name in the transfer portal as well. The frustration that I'm sure many of you have is valid, warranted. Dawes averaged a career best 11.3 points per game a year ago, starting 25 of Clemson's 31 games. Was catalyst to a lot of success for this Clemson Tiger basketball team. Looked to be establishing himself as a confident leader Were there some bad shots in decision making? Sure. But Alamir Dawes, to me, honestly, it felt like had the chance to have a special finish to his career at Clemson. Instead, Alamir Dawes out, going to play somewhere else. And, I was thinking about the portal the other day because the situation at LSU with Will Wade being fired, and then the LSU men's basketball team bringing in Matt McMahon to be their next head coach. And then every single player on LSU's team either going to the NBA or transferring out is unheard of. There are sanctions coming to the Tigers. Not at Clemson, by the way, if you're just tuning in. Sanctions coming to the Bayou Bengals, LSU Tigers. And because of that, essentially every player has left. Now, this was a team that I think, wasn't LSU a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament this year? Yeah, 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. So some of these guys obviously have to be talented. I mean, wouldn't you be foolish? And I'm not saying Clemson's foolish. I'm just saying teams in general. Like, you got to be going after some of these players from LSU. But yes, they had 0 guys returning. Matt McMahon has been at Murray State for the past 7 years. And we'll be building LSU basketball basically from scratch moving forward. Now, how does that affect Clemson? I have no idea, except for to say the transfer portal is becoming the norm. The transfer portal at this point, and I think the LSU scenario proves it maybe more than anything, that it is deadly to sports like basketball, where there are only a handful of players anyway. And if everybody leaves, what do you do? I mean, if everybody just packs it up and goes, because there is, again, and this is the problem, there is no consequence. There's no, now look, you can say, yeah, but some of these guys were part of the reason that LSU basketball is in the situation they're in with Will Wade. Either way, whether these guys were or weren't, what we have gotten down to, or what we have hit now with the transfer portal in college sports, is not what it should have been meant to be. And I could further make a cause and say that it punishes players for the actions of the coach. And I'm not certain that that needs to be the way things are set up. 11 players from LSU entered the transfer portal, folks. Brandon Murray, Xavier Pinson, Adam Miller, Eric Gaines, Efton Reed, Justice Williams, Bradley Ezewaro, Jarrell Colbert, Sharif O'Neal, that's Shaquille's son, by the way. And most recently, Alex Fudge and Mwani Wilkinson. Guys, every player. I think part of the problem with these scenarios is that we punish the institutions, and there probably should be some punishments, right? But maybe we need to figure out a different type of punishment for these institutions. And I don't honestly know exactly what I would expect that to be. But clearly this is not only punishing the institutions, but the players who are leaving. And then hoping to find a place to land when a spot is not guaranteed wherever you go. I mean, I could make the argument, like if I'm an LSU player and my coach has done something wrong, the consequence for the coach should probably be the first time you break rules like that, you're banned. Give them a 5-year ban. 5-year ban from coaching collegiately. You get a second one, you're done. You're done here. 2 violations of that nature, you're done. Because these players, like you're going to, you've caused this program to fall apart because of the actions of the coach. And I just don't think that's the right way to do it. And I think that now that players can just leave, I'll tell you this, one area where I would say it probably is helping is if I'm an academic institution or an athletic department, and I now know that, buddy, Will Wade, you messed this up and we could lose our whole team, then I'll tell you what, we're going to want to know about every single place you go and what you do. Document every meeting with every recruit, everything on the record. We might even have to send a camera crew with you. You're not allowed to do these things on your own. Like, but why would you do that to me, man? Listen, man, because we're trying to keep our program intact. Do you not remember in 2022 when every player left? Every single player's leaving that program, guys. That is a heck of a consequence for the actions of one. And he's been fired. But again, maybe that type of consequence should be, across the board. Make it harsh. Pay back half your salary and suspended for 5 years. Make it something that no coach wants to do it. Until you make not cheating more devastating than the results of winning, cheaters will continue to push the cheating side of the envelope. If you make cheating more of a consequence than winning is a reward, then people will stop cheating. Because at that point, anybody that cheats is just a moron. You just cross over into, well, if that guy's an idiot, there wasn't much hope for him anyway. But maybe that would be it. Like some kind of deal where if a coach has a contract, let's say a coach has a contract for $10 million over 5 years. At the end of 5 years, if you've had no issues, you get the other $5 million, right? Like every year, $1 million that you made goes into a kitty, $1 million that you got paid goes in. And something. We've got to figure out how to make these coaches realize that winning can't be the ultimate reward. Doing it the right way, the consequence for not doing it the right way has to be harsher, more harsh than winning. Winning's reward, in my opinion. 803-450-0086. We heard from CJ Spiller and Lemansky Hall yesterday up in Tigertown. We'll have some of CJ's audio next. Rolling along on a Tuesday afternoon, Lawton Swan on Twitter at Clemson Sports. Follow us over there. Nearly 24,000, actually over 24,000 followers over on our Twitter account. Again, at Clemson Sports. Yesterday up in Tigertown, legendary Clemson running back, current Clemson running backs coach, CJ Spiller met with the media and gave an opening comment on how things have been going for his group.
Just talk about the guys and how pleased I am with them, with all the guys this whole spring. So obviously start with I guess you call them the three horses with Marfa Man, Uno, and my man Pace. With both of those guys being out, man, they've been awesome in the classroom. Really took their mental game to a whole new level. We're really pushing these guys that's been able to come out and practice. And then the Marfa man, he just been unbelievable this whole spring. I think he took a gigantic step in his game, his leadership. He was more vocal. And then you have Tristan Rigby, walk-on guy, and Kevin McNeil, who's a walk-on. Then we had, Dominique Thomas, who came here in January. All three of those guys walk-on well for it because you have Wise Seeger. And those guys, they took advantage of the opportunity that was presented with those other two guys that was out this spring. And them guys, they did the best job that they could, and I was very pleased with that. We still have a long way to go before we can be the unit that we want to be this upcoming season. And they took the challenge, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this gets ready phase translate over to our transformation phase. But overall, really just pleased with the guys. They came and worked hard each and every day. They didn't complain. I really tried to stress them and strain them and really push them to their limits to get the best. And just, what I told those guys, greatness, you have coaches talk about that, but at the end of the day, it has to come from within yourself. And that was my message to those guys. To be great, you have to be ready to do things that other people are not ready to do. Those guys understand that. And like I said, I'm just looking forward to these guys carrying this momentum that they've built in the spring over to the summertime and get ready for fall camp. So, other than that, man, I'm, like I say, really pleased with all my guys that came and put their hard hat on and went to work this spring and did what they need to do to get better as an individual.
CJ Spiller was also asked about the fact that you've got Kobe Pace and Will Shipley. Obviously, they're out right now, but you've also got Phil Maffa, and whether or not he would be satisfied with a three-headed monster heading into the season, or does he want to see one guy really emerge as the guy?
I mean, we want the three-headed, and then, we're going to have Keith Adams that's going to come here later in the summertime. But, those three guys, man, you can put them on any team in America and they can go start. When you're talking about separation, it's going to be very slim because we, as an offensive staff, we feel very comfortable putting any of those guys in there and going in there and getting the job done and have all the confidence in the world in each and every one of them. Now, all three of them bring something totally different to the table, which is what you like as a running backs coach, because every running back is different. But as far as a huge separation, I wouldn't say it's going to be a big gap between those guys. And the thing that I love about all three of them, that they love each other. They want to see each other be successful, and that's very rare that you find in college football nowadays. When you have three guys that we have here on our roster that can literally, like I say, go on any other program and be the starter, but those guys really be happy for each other's success. So, like I said, I don't see where it's going to be a gigantic gap. Like I said, it might be a slim one, but at the end of the day, all three of those guys going to play. The great thing is we was able to get the Marfa man. We got, obviously we still have the spring game, but getting him through this spring, as healthy as we can, considering that, he's going to have a heavier load than what he done had in the past. So far we've been on the right end of that. But like I said, I would feel confident in any of those guys going out there and playing and getting the job done. And, as a coach, it put a lot of strain and pressure on you because, all three of those guys can go out and be successful. But at the end of the day, you can only have one that go out there. So we just have to get our rotation right. And that just falls on me and the offensive staff and making sure that we have the right personnel when we need it.
Talking about some of those guys who have been out there, Phil Maffa, CJ Spiller was asked about how his pass protection and pass catching has gone thus far.
Oh, man, Maffa, man, got some of the best hands on the team, honestly. He showed that last year to be the size that he is. He has great hands, has great feet, got power, got speed. He's almost like a combo, honestly. Because he can catch the ball, he can run the ball, he can pass pro. I mean, he can do it all. But he just took his game to a whole new level from a mental aspect, from a vocal aspect, and really challenge the younger guys to step up and put their best foot forward too. So, like I said, man, I just really been pleased with him. And, I mean, he comes in every day, smile on his face. I mean, he brighten up our room each and every day that he comes in, and man, that's what you love as a coach. But like I said, man, he can do it all. He really can.
CJ Spiller was also asked about the steps forward that Phil Maffa has made, both physically and even mentally during the spring.
Well, I mean, when you talk about, the run game, you understanding, who the offensive line going to, understanding, okay, who they going to, and who's going to be the free guy. Well, mentally, if I know who's going to be the free guy, the terms I use, you got to have a toolbox, right? So you got to have a tool ready for that guy whenever he comes up there. So that's what I talk about. And then just the pass protection, knowing who the offensive line has, knowing who you got, and then just going out there, just blocking, and then just understanding what type of rusher this guy is that comes. So I mean, he just took his game just really to a whole new level. I would say he probably was definitely, I don't even want to say most improved, because it ain't like he had a terrible spring last year, but just with the limited numbers that he had this past season, he just really, from his standpoint, gained a ton of confidence going into the summer.
Again, that's Clemson running backs coach CJ Spiller talking about Phil Maffa and this running backs group. Again, I think by the time the season rolls around, you're going to continue to see Will Shipley emerge and Kobe Pace, and I think Maffa will get his opportunities. But, man, I tell you what, it would be nice, I think, to really have that three-headed monster, as CJ Spiller was talking about earlier, simply because one of the things that I think you do feel is that there's not a ton of drop-off. And with the way guys in this day and age get banged up and spend time on the shelf for whatever reason, that would be a huge benefit. And it's also good to hear, some positive marks on Maffa's pass protection ability, because that's the other thing too. We talk about DJ Uyunglele all the time and his confidence. Well, one thing that can shore up issues is when your running backs do a good job with pass protection. And hopefully that's a positive thing for the Tigers. Stay with us. The show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan with you. Thank you for being a part of the program. We were listening to some audio from CJ Spiller just a little bit ago. I can't help but say it like Dale Gibson, or not Dale Gibson, Dale Gilbert at Clemson's football stadium. CJ Spiller. But here's some more, as Spiller was just asked about in general how injuries that this team's had, kind of take away from what they can do this spring.
Well, from our offensive staff, I think Coach Street did an awesome job of getting our installs, the stuff that we want to get done, and the stuff that we wanted to rep, the stuff that we really gonna rep, come September and stuff like that. Was able to get all that stuff in. Obviously, we didn't have our full all our people out there, so it's still some nuances that we was able to hold back. And once those guys get back, we'll be ready to rep those plays. But for the most part, we was really able to install it. But that's the beauty of this sport, is that you can't hold back on your install, because each and every guy got to be ready to go. And that's kind of what I preach to my guys, that we don't want to change our game plan because, let's say, Will Shipley go down and then only have Kobe and the Maffa man. Those guys got to be able to go in there and execute the whole game. So that's the thing that you try to challenge each and every player as an offensive guy, because literally you're always one play away from being a starter. So if you have that mindset, then I think your offensive playbook can kind of stay wide open.
And it's kind of funny that they're talking about these things, or at least asking these things, because I had a buddy text me and say, should Clemson even play the spring game given the number of wide receivers that are out? And look, it's crazy, the numbers for sure, especially with Adam Randall going down. But I still think there's so much opportunity to learn and get better. And one of those guys that will have that opportunity at this point is Phil Maffa. His nickname, Maffa Man. CJ was asked, where'd that nickname come from?
My good friend, Coach Robbie Caldwell, he just, for some reason, he just started calling him the Maffa Man, and it kind of does stuck. So, I kind of got a nickname for all of them right now. You got, Maffa Man, you got Uno. Only one that ain't really got one is really Kobe. I just call him Kobe. You got Tristan Rigby, call him Red. Wise Seeger, just call him Wise. Dominique, just call him Quadzilla. I'm pretty sure y'all have seen him. His quads is huge. And then Kevin McNeil, we just call him Working Man Kev. So and then I just got to come up with Keith Adams. I just haven't been around him and been on the practice field with him to kind of get a nickname for him yet. So I just try to have fun with those guys. So it's kind of.
Spiller was also asked about coaching with Thomas Austin, who came in with the same recruiting class as Spiller, and now they're working together as assistant coaches for Dabo Swanny.
It's been awesome having Coach Austin right there by my side, and he understands. Obviously, he got his coaching career started before me, so leaning on him, especially in the pass game and in the run game. And the good thing is that we are able to speak the same lingo because he understands, how we kind of see it from the running back view, and then we understand kind of what they're looking at up front. So, if we're on the same page as a unit from the running back standpoint, I think we can be very successful. But there's, like I said, still a ton of work that has to be put in. But man, he came in and done a phenomenal job with the offensive line, just from a communication standpoint. He's young, very energetic, very demanding, and I think the guys respect him for that. Got a ton of knowledge. So, to me, I know he ain't been in a while, but man, he's going to be one of the best. To me, he's the best offensive line coach in the country. But he's, from the outside world, I know he still has a lot, that he want to get better at. So I'm glad to be going on this journey along with him.
Clemson running backs coach CJ Spiller was also asked about, he talks so glowingly about how these guys get along in that running back room. Is that something he appreciates? And really, not having to deal with maybe personalities or attitudes in the locker room, just a room that's filled with guys that seem to get along very well.
Man, I love dealing with personalities. It's a challenge. Doing ball, that's the fun. That's the I ain't gonna say super easy, but it's not as stressful. You love to deal with different personalities, see what guys go through each and every day, seeing how you can help them to be better as an individual. Being a good citizen and all that stuff. So. And all these guys that's in my room now, they all have their own personality that I have to deal with. So I love the challenge each and every day, to deal with a different personality because I know how to push each and every person's button in my room, and I know what kind of get them going. And that's the beauty of a coach, that you have to know what buttons to push with each and every guy in your room to get them ready to go play. So, and I kind of have a good feel of how to get all those guys ready to go rock and roll.
And obviously, we've talked a lot about this Clemson Tiger running back group, but how about Shipley and Kobe Pace and when CJ thinks those guys will be, 100% ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, I don't know the timeline on it, honestly. Whenever I told them guys, whenever they're ready to rock and roll, you just let me know, and we'll be ready. We'll be sitting here waiting for you to return. The biggest thing for both of those, obviously, is just getting back, fully healthy. But I don't want to sit here and put a timeline on it and then something happens, because you just never know what can happen in the rehab session. So whenever they're ready to come back, I'm going to be sitting right in my room waiting for them and ready to hug their neck and get them out on the practice field and yell at them a little bit.
So there you have it, some insight from Clemson running backs coach CJ Spiller here in hour number one. 803-450-0086. Don't forget, coming up in hour number two, Mike Yuva, GamecockCentral.com, joins us to talk about the South Carolina Gamecocks winning the national title. Plus, we'll get his thoughts on Kansas and North Carolina and a host of other topics here on the Tuesday edition of the People Show, Clemson Sports Talk. Now, if you are someone who loves this program, maybe you're a business owner in the area and you're thinking about, man, you know what, I could use some advertising. Hit me up. Hit your boy up. And we'll see if we can help you out. Again, it's Lawton, Lawton, at ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Obviously, not only advertising available on the radio, but also on the website. Would love to be able to help you out with that. So let me know. Again, Lawton at ClemsonSportsTalk.com. 803-450-0086. Text line and phone line. Again, the big news out of Tigertown yesterday. Clemson losing freshman wide receiver CJ Spiller. Got me thinking about running backs. Freshman wide receiver Adam Randall with an ACL injury for a substantial period of time. We'll see how quickly he can get back. I projected that maybe game 3, if his rehab goes well and getting all the recovery, if he can keep a good sharp timeline like some of these other guys have, maybe by game 3 he'll be available. Also today, the big news, Al-Amir Dawes leaving the Clemson basketball program via the transfer portal. That's a blow that Brad Brownell certainly could not have expected. Final segment of hour number one here on a Tuesday afternoon. Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan with you. I did a show the other day, and if you don't listen to the podcast, you should, unless, of course, you've already listened to the show, and then, listening to the podcast would be, I would say, overkill. But the Tiger Woods Y'all edition was all about Tiger Woods and my thoughts on Tiger potentially slowing his game down a little bit, reeling himself in like the guy that just plays with a 7-iron and a putter, and maybe competing, fairways and greens. Tiger, when I was at the Masters a couple of times seeing him, was all over the place, man, spraying the ball and having to play back across these pines. And yeah, he's hitting great shots and sometimes landing on the green. But I wonder if a more conservative, a more controlled, and an older Tiger Woods might actually become a successful Tiger Woods. Currently, Tiger says, as of right now, he plans to play in the Masters just over 14 months after nearly losing his right leg in a car crash. Woods, 15-time major champion, still chasing Jack Nicklaus. If he wins his 6th green jacket, that would tie Jack Nicklaus for the most ever. I think that if Tiger will turn down the volume, he's played this game at a 10 his entire career. I think if he will turn the volume down a little bit, I think he can still compete and play. Like, the prime example are when the older guys now, not the younger guys, right? Like, if we start talking about the Dustin Johnsons and the Rorys of the world who are physically gifted and built the way that Tiger Woods is, because they've gone out and weight training has become a thing. Everybody on the golf course doesn't look like they did in the 1980s when Craig Stadler was playing. But if somebody like Angel Cabrera, just picking a name here, back in 2009, Angel Cabrera won the Masters. Cabrera was 40. Now, a little bit younger than Tiger Woods now, but definitely not from the build of the new ilk of athletic style golfers. Does that make sense what I'm getting at here? Like, Angel Cabrera was more of the older style. And Tiger Woods changed that when he won his first Masters, just storming the field back in 1997, shooting 18 under. Like, from that point forward, I mean, look, not to take away from Marco Mira, who won it in 1998, but the reality is Marco Mira and guys of that ilk, guys from that era, maybe the better terminology, weren't going to win many more titles after Tiger did what he did. And it became apparent that the game was going to change. And that's exactly what Tiger Woods did. He changed the game. Craig Stadler, by the way, did win the Masters tournament if you are keeping score at home. Craig Stadler won the tournament back in 1982, affectionately known as, you guessed it, the Walrus. 803-450-0086. But Tiger, feeling pretty good. He said, I don't show up at events unless I think I can win it. So that's the attitude I've had. There will be a day when that won't happen, and I'll know when that is. But physically, the challenge this week is I don't have to worry about the ball striking or the game of golf. It's actually just the hills out here. That's going to be the challenge. It's going to be the challenge of a major marathon. So Tiger feels good about how he's hitting the ball right now. And again, I am going to go back and say it. I don't know that I'll pick him to win it. But I think if you see through day one, right, Thursday, if you see that Tiger is going to be more measured and in control, then my guess is he will be able to compete. But if he comes out and tries to play as strong and as hard as he's done his entire career, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen at all. 803-450-0086. I think Thursday's storyline will be how Tiger chooses to play, not if, per se. I think if he doesn't play, it's not a story. But if he plays, how he chooses to play will be the story. And if it's conservative and controlled and measured at 46, given everything he's been through, his back, his leg having all the the pins put in it and everything, I think he'll still be able to compete. But if he tries to go out and be 22-year-old Tiger, might as well just go ahead and pack up his things because he's not going to stick around to Saturday and Sunday. Hour number 2, Mike Yuva, GamecockCentral.com, joins the program. Stay with us here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 and, of course, on the iHeartRadio app. If you've never been to our website, go check it out. My website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Great article up right now about Lemansky Hall talking about the future of Clemson's defensive line. We'll hear some of what Lemansky Hall had to say in hour number 2. Stay with us.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set! Just call me Swanny.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
It is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you. Mike Yuva, GamecockCentral.com, joins us every Tuesday afternoon. And, of course, the South Carolina Gamecocks basketball team, the women's basketball team, brought home a national title with a convincing victory over the Connecticut Huskies on Sunday. Mike was at the ball game. Mike, what's up, buddy? Welcome in.
I'm good, Swanny. Been a busy last couple of days, but as you know, whether it's Clemson, South Carolina, or any school in this state, it's always good to be busy when you're talking about championships.
Look, no doubt, 64-49, the final score. The Lady Gamecocks, or the Gamecocks, I know they don't like being called the Lady Gamecocks, brought home their second national title. Dawn Staley cementing herself as one of 8 coaches in the women's game to win 2 or multiple national titles. We had talked about a week ago, maybe even a couple of weeks ago, about the fact that, looking at her resume as a head coach at South Carolina, it was eerily similar to that of John Calipari at Kentucky. Tons of talent, just one title. Maybe they would have, maybe they wouldn't have won the championship in 2020. That is no longer the case. She now has 2 championships in the coffers and looking for more.
And it's crazy to think this, Swanee, that when you talk about not just women's basketball, but when you talk about college basketball as a whole, Dawn Staley becomes the very first Black coach to win multiple championships in college basketball. I mean,
wow.
It's absolutely incredible what she is achieving, because it's much bigger than number one USC. It's much bigger than women's basketball as a whole. What she's doing right now is she's truly a pioneer. And I said this on your program a couple of weeks ago that, you know, even if she didn't get this championship this season, I think a lot of us expected her to get one at some point again. But let's say she finished her career with only one championship. She very well would have been inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame as a coach and become the first female to ever be inducted as a coach and player. I think this championship pretty much cemented that will happen, on top of everything she's been able to accomplish from an Olympic standpoint as well, being the head coach of Team USA this past year. So it's really remarkable. And like I said, it's much bigger than USC, but certainly a week that Gamecock fans will enjoy.
Mike Uva again, Gamecock Central. He's on Twitter at Mike_UVA. And so, Mike, I think the most impressive thing about the game for me watching was that even though South Carolina had beat them earlier in the year, right? They jump out to a 22-8 lead at the end of the first quarter. They never really felt too much pressure from Connecticut outside of maybe a run or two in the second half. It was reminiscent of what Clemson football did to Alabama when Clemson beat them 44-16. Like, everybody sort of gets tired of, I think, the biggest brand in the game, and UConn with 12 national titles, 11 for Oriama and all that. I think people are a little tired of that, and it can feel good to watch this young team, even though they've got a championship like South Carolina, still punch the big dog right in the mouth.
No, and it's impressive when you look at it, right? Going into that game, Gino Auriemma was 11-0 in championship games. That's not the case anymore, right? He's got his first loss. On top of that, South Carolina held UConn to their second fewest points scored ever in program history. You'd have to go all the way back to 1992 against Vanderbilt when UConn scored 47 points. UConn scored 49 in this game. So when you look at what South Carolina was able to do, yes, they won the championship, but they didn't only win, they dominated against essentially the greatest women's basketball program ever. You could put Tennessee right in the mix as well with that, but it's just incredible to see USC, as you mentioned, right? Kind of like that Clemson-Alabama game a couple of years ago. They had a plan, and for USC, that plan was to be able to play inside out, dominate in the paint, and just be physical. They did that right from the get-go. They didn't look back, and UConn just didn't have an answer. And of course, it started with Aaliyah Boston with her presence, and then it goes back to the guard play, like Destiny Henderson having a career night, 26 points in her final game as a Gamecock, raising her draft stock for the WNBA, and she'll likely be drafted now as a top 15 pick. So, I mean, it was very special to see them go out there and not have to look back and just play the style of basketball that they wanted to play and that they have played all season long.
Mike, I don't know if you can answer this question or not. So Asia Wilson plays 4 years collegiately. I mean, is there any chance? I mean, can females go pro early? I mean, is that a thing, or will Aaliyah Boston come back and play another year?
So Aaliyah will come back. This is a question that we've been getting a lot of on Gamecock Central on the Insider Forum page. Now, I don't know the specifics of breaking it down. I just know the answer to that, which is it's a age requirement. So because of when her birthday is, she'll be missing that cutoff. So for Gamecock fans, that's great. That means she's going to come back. Now, that doesn't mean if she was eligible this year, she would even go. But at the same time, too, this is a girl that, or I should say a woman. She is a woman. She
right.
was a woman amongst girls out there the other night. This is a woman that has dominated her position, and she is really changing the game when you look at how she does it, because I was sitting next to one of the UConn reporters who I had a chance to be able to meet over the weekend. And, you know, obviously that New England connection, we had a good chance to talk over the weekend leading up to the game. He's like, it's kind of like watching Gronk out there. You know, it's just like she's so big, but she can move quickly. And you just don't see that. Now, I think with women's basketball, women's sports as a whole, just like we're seeing with just sports across the board. You can talk about football, men's basketball. Players are getting faster and stronger. We're starting to see that with women's basketball. And for Aaliyah Boston, just her size and the fact that she's been able to put some more muscle on since freshman year, and just how quick she is, she's doing things that a lot of other basketball players on the court just can't combat. They can't slow her down because of just how dynamic and how talented she is. So it's really incredible to see because she's really unlike anything that we've seen in quite some time in college basketball.
Well, and also I think the other question now has to be, if you're Gino Auriemma, right? You've been around for so long. It's kind of the Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney deal in a lot of respects. Like at what point, and Auriemma's last championship came, I think, back in 2015. At what point does he decide to hang it up? And if and when that happens, does that essentially make South Carolina the marquee program in women's basketball? I would say yes, kind of like I would say that if Nick Saban hangs it up in Alabama, it really does start to maybe move that needle even more so towards Clemson being the preeminent program perhaps in college football. Now, the past couple of seasons, maybe Clemson's fallen off of that moniker to a degree. But even still, if you start talking about multiple national titles and all that and who's still coaching, I mean, Dabo Swinney's the guy, and there's not anybody else that would fit that same billing.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at women's basketball right now, and this is no disrespect to Louisville and what their coach Jeff has been able to do for the last 15 years over there, they've been incredible. But of the 4 teams this week in the Final Four, only 3 of them have championships. So Louisville, that's why I'm kind of putting them to the side right now.
Yeah, you gotta win.
I think when you look at Stanford, right? Tara, what she's been able to do. I mean, it's funny. I mean, she coached Don Staley on an Olympic team back in the day. But when you look at those 3 teams, I think those 3 are the standard right now of college basketball. And what you're seeing with South Carolina has been able to do, and kind of like we talked about the last couple of weeks or a couple of weeks ago in your program, Don Staley is able to relate with the majority of her team better than those other 2 coaches. She's a black female. She's a black female that's played the game. The other 2 coaches can't say that they can relate the same way to those players. So I think there's certain things that she's able to do that is really changing the game. Certainly, you're going to hit a point where people aren't going to necessarily remember, like, oh, that's Don Staley, the Olympic gold medalist, because they were so young. But once they start realizing, okay, this is how talented South Carolina is, Don Staley, she's a great coach, then they realize, oh, shoot, they're getting recruited. Oh, shoot, Don Staley did all this. I think it just only adds more to the reason of why you want to go to South Carolina. And I mentioned this on another program just yesterday. South Carolina is putting talent in the WNBA. And they're not just getting drafted. They're having freaking good careers. So I think there's just so much right now outside of the fact that, since 2015, South Carolina has led the nation in attendance. The last, 4 or 5 years, it's been outside of the COVID season, of course. You're averaging over 10,000 a game. I mean, it's absolutely incredible what she has been able to create here. But I think for Dawn, the question isn't going to be what happens at these other schools. It's like, what can we do to keep things heading in the right direction here? Because I think for UConn, look, I remember asking Gino Auriemma this question when I was in college. He actually spoke to our college because his son Mike Auriemma was a 6-man off the bench at Assumption. So Gino spoke at the school. And I remember him asking.
Hold on. Before you tell this story, I have to say this to anybody listening. Assumption College has more Kevin Bacon connections to famous people than maybe any school in the country. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Oh, I love it. Anytime I can drop an Assumption reference, we're absolutely going to throw that in there. I'll tell you this: Mike Auriemma threw some epic parties too. That's a good story for another day as well. But no, I think I remember asking him though, and I think at that point he might have had 8 championships. And I remember asking him, I said, Gino, you've accomplished so much in your coaching career. What keeps you motivated? And what he said was, and that obviously at that point seemed like kind of like with Alabama, right? Everyone in that recruiting class at least had 1 championship. He says every season we sit in the locker room and we look around like, all right, who doesn't have a championship? And, typically be the freshmen, but the people put their hands up. It's like, all right, that's our motivation right there. So he's able to find ways to motivate himself, even though he's won so many, just because he's just never satisfied. But I mean, look, whenever that day does come that Gino retires, steps down, whatever, I think they're going to probably hand the keys over to a former UConn basketball player. I think it just makes sense. And obviously what you see, what's going on with North Carolina being able to get to the title game last night. I mean, it's you have a legendary coach move on, you still have a brand there. And if you can hand the keys to the right person, I think it can keep it going. Is it going to be sustainable? That's going to be a question that comes down to, can that coach keep it going? But if Don keeps winning, it will certainly throw a wrinkle into what UConn does, regardless of if Oriam is there or not. And she's certainly creating some waves down here in South Carolina.
Mike Uva, GamecockCentral.com is the website. So, Mike, I know you've been traveling a lot. Did you get a chance to watch the national championship game last night between North Carolina and Kansas with the Jayhawks winning? And if you did, what were some of your takeaways of what I've kind of deemed, instead of maybe an epic comeback, more of a bit of a meltdown by North Carolina in the second half?
So I had the lovely opportunity of flying out at 8 p.m. Central Time. And as I'm landing in Charlotte, I think everyone did the same thing, because I sleep on flights. And I'm not a huge fan of flying. Not like John Madden, though, which would be nice if I had a John Madden van and just can go across the country.
The Uva Cruiser. I like it. The Uva Cruiser.
Oh, it'd be great.
You can't go,
the point being, if y'all land, I wake up, and there's 90 seconds left, and it's like, you got to be kidding me. And you start seeing the updates, on your phone that you missed when you were flying. Kansas was down by 15, and this and that. It's just, holy cow. So I think I appreciated it more going back and watching the game a little bit more this morning, seeing more of the highlights. But incredible. I mean, that's what college basketball is all about, though, right? I mean, being able to get to the Final Four, see the four best teams in the country. I mean, between that North Carolina Duke game and then being able to see what Kansas did in the national championship last night.
Yeah.
That's what you want. And I mean, I know it really hasn't happened at all in college football since they created the college football playoff, but that's what you want to see. We've seen it in title games. We just really haven't seen it in the semifinals. So, I mean, that's what you want. You want to be able to see some of those close matchups. I mean, I can only imagine how nerve-wracking it must be to be a fan of one of those schools watching that, or if you had money on the game last night. But just from an entertainment standpoint, I was entertained, and I only watched 90 seconds of it.
So, Mike, yesterday I went on the record and said, if I was Coach K, I don't think I could leave losing to North Carolina in the semifinals. But after the way they lost in the championship, being up by the most points ever, 16, and losing, you know what? I think I could leave at that point. Like, if you were Coach Krzyzewski, could you retire after losing to North Carolina in the semifinals? Forget what happened last night. Could you have retired?
Health aside, if I'm that aggravated, if I'm Coach K, you're asking me, I'm Coach K, I'm coming back. If my health's good, I'm coming back.
I agree. Now, after they lose and have, again, 16-point lead, the largest in championship game history to end with a loss, at that point, I think if I'm Coach K and I was sitting at home watching it, I think I could leave, because I can always say, dude, you guys had a 16-point lead and you blew it. You didn't win the title. I think I could get over it at that point.
I know what you're saying, Swanny, and I'm not saying necessarily you. I think once you hear what I say, I think you might agree with it. All these guys, the Coach K's of the world, the Michael Jordans of the world, the Tom Brady's, the Michael Phelps, doesn't matter what sport it is, all they want to do is dominate. They don't care about anything else other than dominating, right? So the fact that what happened to UNC, I'm sure it put a smile on his face a little bit, but I'm sure it's one of those things. It's like, it's less about them and it's more about me, And it's not saying it in a selfish way. It's saying like, hey, what happened with them has nothing to do with the fact that we still lost. We still lost to our arch rival. And that's how a lot of people, especially within the Duke community, from talking to certain people, but people that I don't even know out in Minnesota, that's how a lot of them are going to remember Coach K, which it's a stain on his legacy. Is that what he should ultimately be remembered for? Certainly not. But to go out that way, that one stings. So, I mean, look, and I said this before, and it's not one of those hindsight things. I know we're here, so it looks like it's in hindsight. This is why you don't do retirement tours. This is why I'm so against retirement tours. Just friggin' drive off into the sunset. I know Brady's coming back. I know this will likely be his last year. So I guess you could somewhat call it a retirement tour, but I'm sure he's not going to treat it as such. You know, Coach K said, oh, I don't know why so many people are putting pressure on these young men. You know, I think this was during the Sweet 16. Well, hey, buddy, why do you think that's the case? You created the pressure. You're saying it's their last year. What do you think's going to happen? So, I mean, look, if I'm just Coach K being selfish, if I want to be able to make a statement, I come back. But you got to realize, buddy, man, enough with the retirement tour crap. Just go out there and coach. You're a legendary coach. You're one of the best ever. You don't need everyone patting you on the back, giving you fake gifts. You know, go to one state, they give you like a rocking chair that's made of some special oak tree from their state. You know, these stupid things that you see in baseball, and Derek Jeter did his retirement tour. I hate them. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hope we don't see retirement tours anytime soon. I know it's going to happen. And if it does, I hope everyone just boos the person. I don't care what they've done for the sport. I don't care if they've transcended the sport or not. Get rid of retirement tours. I hate them.
Mike Uva did not pull any punches on that one. I will not announce my retirement in advance, Mike. I will do it. I will just cut it off all at once. I will not make a retirement run here on the radio. I promise you that, sir. Mike, buddy, have a great week, man. Always appreciate you.
Appreciate it, Swanny.
There he is, Mike Uva, GamecockCentral.com, on Twitter at Mike_UVA. Yeah, Cruza, I wanted to say Uva because it rhymes with Cruza, but he's Uva. I don't know if you can have the Uva Cruza. You got to go the Uva Cruza. Mike Uva, GamecockCentral.com. With a quick break, stay with us for more Clemson Sports Talk. The show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk on a Tuesday afternoon. Yesterday, coming off of the practice fields up at Clemson ahead of the spring game this Saturday, Clemson defensive ends coach Lemansky Hall gave a quick recap about how things have gone for him with his position group thus far.
So really, I wanted to just really express my thoughts on how the guys played this spring. Man, they've done a tremendous job. The buy-in of what we're trying to do defensively. We had spring goals, like what we want to accomplish. Right? We want to be really good, and how we're going to do that. Right? We got to have fundamentals, techniques, striking with our hands, being physical at point of attack, just being violent, man, and really just learning how to line up correctly, be in the right spots. Really just through self-scouts. Just trying to make sure, hey, we're doing our job. Just play the defense call, okay? Whatever that defense is, just play the call, and let's line up correctly. No mental errors. So a lot of our talk this spring has been that, and I must say I'm pleased with the guys' effort, physicality of the players, just the way we approach practice, game-like mentality, and they've battled, we got some guys that are battle tested, played a lot of football, right? And that's what we look for. And if you're an older guy, I expect you to get better in some areas, right? And I can tolerate a younger guy like Zaire or a Cade Denhoff that makes a mistake. And so this spring, I've been pleased that my older guys have not made a lot of mistakes. I think about, Miles Murphy, for example. Miles is in better shape. He's got more powerful, explosive. His point of attack has been tremendous. His pass rush has gotten a lot better. He's become more of a leader, and I'm excited about that. And so Miles, he's what I thought he would be when we recruited him. And so I expect Miles Murphy to have double-digit sacks this spring or this fall. KJ Heron, in my opinion, has probably had the best camp out of all the guys. really explosive. You can see how, at first I thought the knee was going to be an issue, but he spent a lot of time fundamentally working on just his balance, his flexibility, stability, and all those things. And so his point of attack has been strong. His pass rush, we've moved him around in different spots to kind of show his versatility. He's done a good job with that. Xavier Thomas, same thing, explosive, not a lot of mistakes. He's a guy that, man, if you just buy into the program, just get out of the way and just do what he do. He can be, one of the greats to come through here. And then Justin Maskel is another guy that has had a great camp. He's always been a guy that's physical. He's learned how to play and not make a whole lot of mistakes. All right, he's doing everything that we've asked, and he's gotten better in the weight room, got strong in the weight room, which is what we were looking for. And so the four guys, who have played a lot of snaps, we've kind of, Coach Swint wanted me to make sure I did a good job of how I rep those guys throughout spring ball. Because, at the end of the day, we don't play, the season doesn't start in the spring, starts in the fall. And then the other two guys, if I'm thinking about Zarya Patterson, is a kid that's a developmental guy. He's done a great job in the weight room, have gotten a lot stronger, gotten a lot bigger. The thing with him is, he's raw. So he's just got to learn the system, learn college football, and, just continue to, don't worry about making mistakes. Just play fast, right? Get in the playbook, play fast, and he's doing really, really good. And then Cade Denhoff is a player that has all the ability. He's an effort guy, really does a good job of, playing with all-out effort. He's done a good job also learning the playbook, and I'm pleased with him. Then the last two guys I'm going to mention before I take questions is Greg and Kevin Swint, okay? You can only run out there with two guys, right? And the way I ended the year last year with four guys that were I can alternate, can be my starters. Kevin Swint was a guy that moved in from linebacker to defensive end, and so this is a year and a half. He's done a tremendous job of adapting to a defensive end position, and so Kevin, this has been a good spring for him. Now he's picked up weight. I think Kevin's like 245. So he's learning how to be physical at point of attack. He's learning what the defensive end position, stands for. He's learning how to rush a quarterback. And like I said about KJ, we're moving Kevin around to play multiple positions from a DN's perspective. And I've been pleased with him. He knows football, very smart. I can put Kevin out there and play any position on the field, and you say, "Hey, Kevin, get on the board. Tell me what that position looks like." And he can draw it up, he can articulate it, and so I love Kevin Swint. And then Greg Williams, another guy that moved from linebacker to DN, has done a really good job as well. He was raw when he first got here, man, but he's embraced being a defensive end, and he wants to do a good job at defensive end. So now it's about hey, let's put it all together. All right, let's work on your get off. Let's work on your steps. Let's work on hand placement. Let's get in the playbook. And he's another guy that's done a really good job. So I can answer any questions that you guys. I just want to make sure you guys I was able to answer.
I covered almost all my questions, but
So there you go, a little long-winded response from Lemansky Hall, but some really good insight into all those guys on the defensive front. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. I shouldn't say defensive front, but the defensive end spot. And, we'll hear some more from Lemansky here coming up in just a little bit as he talks further about reloading that room and kind of knowing those guys who are on their way to the next level. But, man, what a solid group of defenders they've got on that defensive line, and even more specifically what they've got there with those guys on the perimeter at defensive end. 803-450-0086. Again, don't forget the Masters coming up this weekend. Plus, you got Clemson Tiger baseball. We'll give you a little rundown on that. They take on the Georgia Bulldogs tonight at 7 o'clock, weather permitting. We'll hit a quick break and come back with more. The show that shakes the South Lane. Keep it locked for more Clemson Sports Talk right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 and on the iHeart Radio app. Back at it, Clemson Sports Talk. Lemansky Hall met with the media yesterday, and he was asked, and we heard some long form there talking about some of those guys getting back after it, but Lemansky Hall was asked about the young players and what opportunities they've gotten during the spring, as this is a very advantageous time for those guys to, get out opportunities to get ready to play when their time does arise.
And so that's what Coach Sweeney wanted. He's like, Ski, man, I want you to dial back the snaps for the older guys, and let's get more reps. So I needed to see Greg. I needed to see Kevin, right? Because they didn't play a lot last year. And not only that, I needed to see Zaire and Cade. All right, they were on the scout team last year. They didn't get a lot of reps during the season. I was definitely able to see from a development standpoint where they are, where they needed to be, and then my expectation. Right, I expect you to be physical. I expect you to have a desire to win your one-on-one matchup. All right, I'm gonna beat that guy in front of me. That's my mindset. Right, and I'm gonna hustle. I'm gonna run on and off the field. I'm gonna be violent on the field. I'm gonna have that mentality, game rep mentality. So when you're on scout team, sometimes you don't have that game rep. Right, it's not a game rep mentality. You're the look squad, and so I'm just trying to get those guys to process that and be able to do that at a high level.
Lemansky Hall was also asked about transitioning from former Clemson Tiger defensive tackle coach Todd Bates to the current guy, Nick Eason, the former Clemson Tiger, former Pittsburgh Steeler, Super Bowl champ. But Eason made a pretty quick impression after his move from Auburn to Clemson. Here's how things have gone so far, according to Lemansky Hall, on that transition.
Oh yeah, it's been great, man. I've known Nick for a while, and just having him, just his knowledge. It was an easy transition for me because I had a relationship with him, and so when I heard that we had an opportunity to get Nick, man, I was fired up. We got better, and just having him in the room, just his knowledge, just how he coached, his experience, he's helped me a lot, and hopefully I can say that. I hope you can say the same thing about me. But it's been great, man, and he brings energy every day, and the guys love him. So it's a good combination.
How far back have you known him?
About 5-6 years. All right, so a couple years ago, when I first got the DN job, Nick was he was at the Senior Bowl, and I called him up and said, "Hey, man, I want to come visit with you." We actually met in his hotel room and talked hand placement, techniques, and things like that. So oftentimes we talk football, but man, he's just been a good resource and a good friend.
Hall was also asked about the comments that were made earlier this year about the simplification of this defense coming into the season.
Yeah, it is simple. We didn't do a whole lot of installs. I think like I played defense, man, for a long time, and you got to get the buy-in from the guys. And the problem is you don't want guys out there thinking, I just want, defensive reaction, right? And you want guys to have confidence in what they're doing. And, this spring, man, we're able to slow things down and coach the position how we want to run it. And, our guys, you can tell, man, when they line up, they play fast. They see things, they're seeing the right things, and we're able to move. And it hadn't been a whole lot of mental errors in practice. And, that's what we like to see as coaches.
Hall was asked to clarify about when the install would come.
Oh, yeah, when we start game planning. Yeah. I mean, we got the bulk of what we're going to do. And, Wes and Mickey both have done a good job of here's what we're going to do. Here's the installs for the day. And, like I said, the guys have bought in. It's been the players, man, coming in, watching film. And obviously the players are the ones that can get it done. But I do think being able to play fast and being able to slow some of the things down, the install, has helped our guys a lot.
Lemansky Hall was also asked to elaborate on Myles Murphy and just his improvements as a player thus far.
I mean, all of it. He's understanding rush angles, getting off the ball, the leverage of the quarterback, leverage of the tackles, the pass sets of the tackles. Miles Murphy is a freak. You know, he can do it all, man. Miles just gotta believe in that, have confidence in his ability, and I know he has that. And last year he should have had double-digit sacks. He gave up a couple of them, but Miles has the ability to be able to have double-digit sacks, and I know that's what he wants to be. He wants to be a double-digit sack guy. He wants to dominate the line of scrimmage. He wants to be a guy that dominates his guy every Saturday. So I have full confidence in his ability to be able to do that.
Lemansky Hall also talked about his position group, trying to run that number up from really, I guess, 4 guys he could count on to 6 moving forward.
Obviously, I do think for my position, you know, I'm losing 4 guys next year. All right, X, KJ, Maskel, and Miles.
Yeah.
So in order for that to work, I got to get the young guys some reps, and that's my mentality going in. But you know, at the end of the day, like Coach said, man, you got to earn the right to play. I'm not going to put a guy in there that can't get it done, right? Because then I'm jeopardizing the team, and I don't ever want to do that. But you know, I would love to go in with 6 guys, and then just see what happens, man. That's kind of the rotation this year. Even the spring, I had a chance to put Greg and Kevin with the first group just to see, okay, what can they do? And man, they did a great job. And also the next thing for me is trust. I got to be able to trust that you're going to do what you're supposed to do. All right, you're going to play the technique that's called. You're going to play the defense that we call. And I feel like I can trust Greg and Kevin.
Lemansky Hall, Clemson defensive end coach. 803-450-0086. You got anything to say, any thoughts, comments, you can hit us up. You know, we always appreciate you hanging out with us and having a good time talking about your Clemson Tigers, the website, clemsonsportstalk.com. All right, coming up, Clemson baseball. Still scheduled, I believe. I'm going to double check the docket here. I don't see anything changing that. I will say I did see one video, though, that caught my attention from last night's game and a potential turning point in the national championship that North Carolina fans, hey, you might not like it. You might not like it when I tell you what happened. 803-450-0086. Yeah, it looks like things are still on at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. So we'll keep you updated on that here on the show if possible in the next segment. With a quick break, we'll come back with more Clemson Sports Talk on Fox Sports Radio 1400 and, of course, on the iHeart Radio app.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answer to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment of hour number 1, the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan. Real quick, one final little note here on the national championship game last night. And look, when you're up 16, it's tough to make excuses. It's tough to say, well, this one play cost us the game because you were up by 16. But I saw a tweet earlier today during the show where Andrew Baycott was driving late in the game, North Carolina down by 1, and Baycott rolled his ankle, 30 seconds, under a minute to go, rolls his ankle, and ends up going out of the game. But the thing about it, watching the video back, the floor at the arena completely shifts under his foot. And look, I don't know if that's what caused him to twist his ankle or not, but there is no doubt that the floor shifts. And if that doesn't happen, if Bacot doesn't go out, or if in that moment there is a foul that takes place on McCormick was the guy who scored to put Kansas up 3 in the one-on-one scenario in the paint. I mean, I'm not telling you that one play or one moving piece of tile or whatever happened to Bacot makes the difference in North Carolina's your champions. But, folks, it was hard not to watch that replay and think, man, what if that ankle didn't roll? 803-450-0086 text line and phone line. Coming up tonight, a key matchup for this Clemson Tiger baseball team. They have been struggling over the past couple of weeks, and there is no doubt coming into the season that Monty Lee was on the hot seat. Maybe not for every fan, but for a lot of people. A 14-0 start stemmed the tide on that, made people think, okay, here they go. Well, folks, they are 4-9 in their last 13. They are facing the 10th ranked Georgia Bulldogs, who are 22-6. Again, another home game, another opportunity. Billy Barlow on the mound for Clemson. But the Tigers have to start winning some games like this again. And I'll say this. Nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to lose. Nobody's ever walked in and said, man, you know what? The thing for me, the thing I love is losing. And it feels like Clemson's got to start winning, right? I mean, that's just, it's what's the right word here? There's no other option for Clemson baseball and Monty Lee right now because fans are frustrated. And he's coaching a program that people aren't going to, they're not just going to dismiss it. And that's the thing. Like the news, Alamir Dahl's leaving the basketball team. People will be like, oh, well, that stinks. But nobody's faced. So many people that could have more influence aren't and don't really care. Baseball doesn't have that same luxury. The influencers do care. And, this baseball team's just, you just have to become scrappy, man. It's just like you have to, but you talk about Clemson grit in baseball. Monty Lee's talked about the leadership on this. I mean, we talk about the Clemson grit in basketball. Monty Lee's talked about, the leadership on this baseball team. Well, truth be told, when the chips are down, when your back's against the wall, man, that's when your players have to come through for you. And they've got to start they got to start figuring some things out, or else this season could get away from them. And the worst part of that, from my standpoint, if I think about Monty Lee, is that people have this start to the year, sweep of the Gamecocks, 14-0. They've got that to hold against you, because now when I was in college, I was like this. Like, I would do well the first test. Then a little later, I'd struggle a little bit more. And later in the year, man, I didn't have the same stamina, and then my grades would dip. And at the end of the year, man, it looked like I was falling apart. My teacher wasn't going to give me much grace. My buddy Steve did the opposite. Steve purposely did poorly at the beginning of the year. Then he worked a little harder in the middle of the year. And then he worked as hard as he could at the end of the year. And you know what his teachers thought? Man, way to go, guy. You're really pouring it on late. So, all that being said, Monty Lee and this Clemson baseball team, their backs are against the proverbial wall, because they are essentially sitting in the midst of their toughest stretch, perhaps, mid-season, and they started 14-0, and everything is going to be magnified. Taking on a top 10 Georgia team tonight, and then a 3-game set in Notre Dame against one of the top teams in baseball in the Fighting Irish. We got to get out of here. Until tomorrow, as always, y'all take care now. And go Tigers.